Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Waza Dome. Today I got a very special guest, man, my friend and brother. He's an author, uh, definitely of many books, but African Spirituality for Children of the African Diaspora. The link is in the description. Go check that out. He's been a practitioner of Isheshe, which many of you know as or call it Ifa for many, many years. But if you can, Black Panther, explain to the people just your journey in Isheshe before we even get started.
Lafia Mandala, Baby Fuhurie, Health, Power, and African Liberation. Thank you for having me. As always, brother, appreciate you. My journey in West African Orisha tradition and system starts about 2010,
Mm.
comes to now. It's just something that I started out reading a book. I will not name the book because I don't really recommend it to people. From reading a book to becoming curious to meeting my now transitioned Oluwa Araba Adedayo Logundudu from Ile Ife, and him initiating me to Ifa, him initiating me to Ogun, and studying and meeting other teachers from there. My now Oluwa and Oloye Iwendara, and my Baba Ode Ogundiran Olo Mombo, and studying with them for many years and just honing my craft. Currently, within the Ifa realm, I am what's called an Omo Awo, which is a child of secrets.
Mm.
Still studying. Some people may call me an Awo. I don't really agree, but an Awo is like a competent priest. That's kind of how we use it. Within the Ogun sphere, I'm an Ologun, which means I'm a basic priest of Ogun.
Mm.
So journeyed a bit further in that realm. But yeah, those are my current titles.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you for breaking that down for the people. Um, so, one thing that kind of made me want to do this show because you had you made a post and it just kind of made me think, and it was about syncretism in Isheshe, and you said that Ifa says to stop mixing traditions, right, and say no to syncretism. Can you explain what syncretism is in this context for the people and what problems can occur from it?
Well, the first thing I want to do is because people will say, "Well, who is he to say what he said and things of that nature?" I'm going to pull up a reference here
Mhm.
because this is not my thought. This is not my thought. Those of us that are practitioners of Ifa in a traditional sense, we know that every year around June, we get our yearly divination that comes out of Ile Ife, which is our holy city within
Mhm.
Yoruba Isheshe context. So every year, a reading is done for the world, all practitioners of Ifa throughout the world. That comes out of Ile Ife. Many diviners come together and they do this lengthy divination.
Mhm.
And the Odu that fell this year is called Otuopon Meiji. It's one of the 16 major Odu. And one of the verses in this Odu talked about, heritage preservation. And it says, and I quote, Ifa says people should stop syncretizing Ifa with alien practices.
Mhm.
People should stop bowing to the gods of strangers and
Mhm.
stay within the spirituality of the Oduduwa race. Ifa says many are not having peace of mind and they are experiencing calamity upon calamity because they have abandoned their heritage. People who are in foreign faiths should revert to the Oduduwa indigenous faith for the comfort of life and peace of mind.
Mhm.
And there's a verse that comes with this that says, when one dies, he or she becomes an ancestor. Um, Ifa's message to Awe Remegun, which is a person, who was born into a family where indigenous practice is prominent. He was born into a family where Orisha practice is prominent, who later turned against his ancestors, who later turned against his ancestral Orisha. Awere Megun, the day you bow down to another person's ancestors, you are doomed.
Mm. Mm.
So that is the verse.
Right.
It's not Black Panther.
Yeah.
Right, this verse. This is the verse, that fell
Mhm.
for this particular year, one of many.
Yeah. Hmm.
I highlighted it in a Facebook post because uh, in the community of African people worldwide, this is a reoccurring issue. This is a reoccurring theme. So simply, syncretism, an amalgamation or attempted amalgamation of different religions, cultures, or schools of thought. Simple, basic definition.
Hmm.
Uh, taking, uh, for example, tarot cards and trying to mix it with what we
Yeah.
call Isheshe would be syncretism.
I see a lot of that in the YouTube EFA space. A
Right.
lot
So,
of that.
so you cannot take tarot cards and Odu Ifa, put them together and say that this is the word of Orumila. This
Hmm.
is the indigenous Oduduwa faith. You cannot do that. This is what part of what that verse is speaking about. It's about taking things that are foreign to Ifa and
Hmm.
putting them with Ifa and producing something that is different from what would be natural in that space. So that's part of the things that that verse is talking about. And I just put that verse out there on my Facebook because many people don't find fault in doing that.
Yeah.
Take, whether it be, crystals, tarot cards, the all the other stuff that's out there from the Akashic records to whatever they can find. Because Orisha has gained some popularity in recent years,
Hmm.
they want to ride that
Yeah.
train. Uh,
Hmm.
they will mix it with our Orisha and try to, come up with this amalgamation of this thing, and then say, this is what they do in Nigeria. So Ifa is now advising against this and stating that people, their peace of mind and calamities and things can happen when you try to speak for Rumila when you have not done, the study and you want to mix it with other things and call it a Rumila's teaching. So that is what I wanted to highlight. It's not really that serious.
Yeah.
It's kind of plain.
And nah, because I was, you know, I have seen that a lot and it's not, as you know, like any at YouTube, there are so many different type of rabbit holes. Anything that you're into or want to learn about, there's people on there who are, extremely authentic, and people on there who may be on there to try to have a check. They have these big productions and stuff like that. And some of the ones that I have seen with big productions in the EFOS space they do a lot of mixing. They do
Yeah,
a lot of mixing. And so it wouldn't even be, tell me if I'm correct though, it wouldn't even be a problem if they dealt with some type of religious pluralism where Ifa is right, I practice Ifa and I don't mix it with this other thing that I do over here.
there are many people that may practice, Isheshe,
Hmm.
that have another faith
Hmm.
practice.
Hmm.
Uh, that is totally separate from what they do with Orisha. You will find that in Nigeria. You will find that in the diaspora. You'll find that many places people do that.
Right.
So, they have this separate whatever it is, and they keep it separate from Isheshe. And it's generally accepted. I
Hmm.
will say, but pay attention to the part of the verse that said, when you bow down
Yeah.
to
From his ancestors. Yeah.
Not yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, that's real. That's
So
real.
you have to keep that in mind as well. You know, some of
Mhm.
these other things, these other religions, these other systems, these other faiths, these other practices have origins of ancestors that are not yours. So you
Mhm.
have to keep that in mind as well.
Might be origins of, I mean, ancestors that did some harm to our ancestors. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
You have to consider that as well because that was also stated in the verse.
Hmm. In this context, it is also referred to traditions like Lukumi and Candomblé and things that are, Orisha based, like traditions that are, diasporic.
Well, these traditions are their own traditions. You
Okay.
know, Lukumi, Regla de Ocha, Santeria, it's its own tradition. You
Yeah.
know, they have their
Okay.
own
Okay.
protocols, they have their own
Mm-hmm.
way of worshiping Orisha. They have their own idiosyncrasies that, are to them exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that we do not do, some things that they do do.
Mm-hmm.
The only conflict would be is if you were trying to mix, let's say, Lukumi or Regla de Ocha with, traditional West African Orisha worship. That is when the problem would incur.
Mm-hmm.
But these systems, Candomblé, Kibanda, these other Orisha-based systems, Kele, and the others that are in the Caribbean and in
Where's
parts.
Kayla?
Kele is Saint Lucia.
Okay. Okay.
It's a practice that's pretty much Shango based.
Mm.
You will see it. I think it's in Trinidad as well. You'll see Shango Baptiste out there as well. So Kele originally is the name of the bead of Shango.
Mm.
So that practice is heavily Shango based. So the entire
Right.
practice
Oh
they
yeah.
call
Yeah,
it
you about to send me down another another rabbit hole, man.
So it stands to believe that a lot of possibly Shango worshippers were shipped to that region, and that
Yes. Yeah.
may incur that name. But these traditions are, they're traditions. They're standalone traditions. They stand on their own. But the syncretism between them and Isheshe is something someone should avoid.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And so you mentioned Oduduwa and Ile Ife, and for those who may not be familiar with, um, the Yoruba tradition, can you talk about the significance of Oduduwa and the founding of Ile Ife?
So Odudua is often recognized as the progenitor of the Yoruba people. Uh, Oduduwa is an exiled king who arrived in Ile Ife and eventually became king of Ile Ife. That's the very condensed, shortened version. Oduduwa is an Orisha as well.
Mm. I didn't
He
know that. Okay, I didn't know Oduduwa was an Orisha
does
as
it
well.
as well. So Oduduwa is kind of what some people regard as the first king of Ile Ife.
Hmm.
So, they count from him and his kingdoms that he established and the Ile kingship house empire tradition that he, brought. So Oduduwa is very important to the Yoruba people
Hmm.
and its history because of, the war that happened with him, the things that he set up, the history from the other cities and places in Yoruba land who began to pay tribute to Ile Ife as Ile Ife takes shape as basically the big dog kingdom of our tradition. So he's very important in his history and his legacy. And a lot of people start with him, although there's history before him. A lot of people start with Odudua.
As far as Ile Ife, like what would that translate to, I guess, in this,
But
colonizer's language that we speak?
Ile it means house,
House. Okay.
house of
Okay.
Ife. you know,
Okay. 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 I got it. I got it. I
Ife
got
is
it.
a place, so
It's,
it's like house of Ife.
got you. Got you. One thing that always kind of baffles me, and it kind of goes back to the first question about and how that Odu spoke of, bowing down to someone else's ancestors. Um, you know, the idea that Oduduwa came from Arabia and has an Arabic origin, like that for me, right? That reeks of like this colonial Arab slave trade, situation that we went through. Um, but I'm starting to see many of our people, especially some that, and I'm again, this show is not dissing anybody's faith or anything like that, but I have to keep it 100. It's a lot of brothers that I know that have Islamic leanings, will they'll propagate this idea that Oduduwa had an Arabic origin. But again, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess one prophet wasn't enough, huh? They tried
Right, right,
to
right.
I got enough. It wasn't enough. No, but it's you'll find this school of thought, amongst many people because of the Odu Ife that says that Odudua came from the east.
Mm,
Try to extend that east all
all the way east, right?
all
Yeah.
the way to Saudi Arabia. So it's an interesting concept. I've usually seen it by people who have converted to Islam.
Mm,
Um, and they try to make that connection between Islam and Isheshe, and it's just not true.
mhm,
You don't have to go any further than Benin City
mm,
to find the origin of Oduduwa, and that would be the Edo people, who are still there in Nigeria. They actually still have a festival in which they honor Oduduwa to this day.
mm, mm.
It's
Ain't
not
no
that.
damn festival in Arabia honoring Oduduwa.
Nah, nah, nah,
Like,
nah.
you might get, you might,
Get
yeah,
with your own prophets. You got Akbar, Muhammad, all them. Y'all got y'all thing. We honor our own, and uh, so when people say he's an exiled king,
Mhm,
so he wouldn't be an exiled king from Arabia.
mm,
Amongst their kings list, you're not gonna find nobody named Odudu.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
you will find him amongst the Edo people. So you don't have to go outside of Africa to find important people. We have our own important people, and anybody that's just propagating that is usually a person who is converted to Islam and wants to try to syncretize. Bring this up
Mhm.
again, syncretize between the two, traditions, and that's just not something that is historically accurate.
Do you think are there any brothers and sisters who may have those same type of leanings in West Africa who are propagating that as well?
Yeah, yeah. People that have converted to Islam in Nigeria
Hmm.
propagate that
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you got to think, and the trans-Saharan slave trade was more of a nightmare than the transatlantic in some
Hmm.
instances.
Right.
In length of time, we're talking about
Hmm.
almost 1,300 years.
Hmm.
So West Africa was ravaged by Islam. So you have people that converted to Islam. You have people that they're Islamic communities. So you have people that want to make that connection, that link, but it's simply not true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it's necessary, right? Like, especially knowing that we are primarily West African people here in the diaspora. We should be happy about the our own history, right? And I don't, unlike others, I don't have as many issues with certain faiths, but at the same time, I am I know the value in our own history and our own traditions. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's really no point in it. I want to
It's really interesting though, because if let's just say it was so, and
mhm,
Oduduwa came from Arabia or Mecca and traveled all the way to Nigeria for some reason, and has this hostile takeover, and now he's king. So why did he abandon Islam?
Right, right, right.
Where did Islam go when he got to Nigeria?
Yeah, yeah, no, real talk.
And
Right.
why did we, have no trace of what they were doing there come
Yeah,
from him?
that's a good question. That's a good
Why is it
question.
named Ile Ife and not named New Mecca
Exactly, because
or New Arabia or like just something? Because one thing about migrations and people that travel, they take their culture with them.
yes,
These
yes.
are things that happened. So,
Hmm.
even with him coming from Edo, there are some things about Edo culture that you will find in Yoruba land and vice versa. So the culture was familiar enough to him to where he could feel comfortable. If you're coming from a place with a totally different type of culture, there would have been a lot more pushback
Yeah.
with
Right.
him trying to take the throne. So
Mhm.
it's just little historical things that don't sync up with the argument. Uh, so, it's just one of those things where when you meet someone who is dead set on saying Oduduwa came from Mecca or Arabia in some sort, you're dealing with someone who wants to syncretize Islam to the Yoruba people and its spiritual systems.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Um, just going off track just a little bit, and I'll get right back on. I was doing a little bit of research the other day, and you know how we have um, Orisha-based traditions all throughout the diaspora. One place I saw that where they have some Orisha-based traditions where I didn't realize it was Mexico. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, in recent years, I've seen people, seen African or Nigerian born Babalawos get
Hmm.
contracted to go out to Mexico to perform services.
Really?
I do know that there is a community. I don't know who's bringing them out. I don't
Mhm.
know, the ins and outs, but I've seen a few videos. I've seen people go out there and perform initiations and things of that nature. I don't know the people personally, but I've heard of it. I've seen some videos. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I've seen African spirituality travel to a lot of places. I've seen it travel to Japan. I've seen
Wow.
travel to foreign lands all over because um, number one, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
number one.
Mhm.
Number two, you never know who is influenced and wants to know more about Orisha or no matter where they live. So it doesn't surprise me where Orisha goes.
Japan. Wow. That's very interesting. But you're right, we're everywhere as well. What about if a someone who is a non-African, right, wants to take part in the tradition? Because obviously, we have in a lot of places where there's a heavy, maybe Taino and Spanish mix, but there also still is an African element as well. But what about if they're in places where, or with the people that have no African genetics whatsoever? Like, are they welcome to, I guess, take part in these traditions?
I've never seen a racial requirement for Isheshe. There are many different types of people who practice Orisha in some sort. Some of them practice Isheshe, some of them practice Candomblé, some of them practice Lukumi, and so on and so forth. Um, it really depends upon the house and the chief priest of that house and who he wishes to accept, who or he or she wishes to initiate or whatever their vetting process is. But I've met different type of people, other than African people, that practice Orisha worship in some manner, in some system. It's it's more common than people would think. I would just.
I was really surprised, and I don't think this book is right and exact. I'm not going to put it on the screen, But a long time ago, I bought a book.
Author.
Huh?
Who's the author?
It was a white dude. I didn't know he was a white dude.
There's a few white dudes.
Oh, it's all right. Hold on, let me get it.
There's a few white guys whiting about Orisha. Got to be a little more specific.
But I had bought this one.
You know, that's very funny. The
Mhm.
book that I spoke about earlier that I did,
That's what you were talking about.
that's it. That's it. The Bible who wrote that book. The book is not terrible.
Okay,
There
okay,
are some things in the book that we have to question.
okay.
Unfortunately, he has transitioned
Hmm.
in recent years. He has moved on to the old room. Uh, but yeah, in that book, he categorized Obatala as a white person.
Did he really?
So
I
that
I read this from you know what? It's been a while since I read this, but and I
yeah,
probably was shocked then too and just totally forgot. But he
yeah,
the
yeah,
Orisha of the white cloth, he
yeah.
imagined that as white skin.
And I believe he did that because he himself was an Obatala worshiper. uh,
Mm,
and he himself was white. So
right.
I think that was his way of trying to link or kind of validate that he was practicing Orisha, and you can't tell me that I can't practice Orisha because one of your Orisha are white. So
Wow.
that was his way of doing that,
That
which
is
is totally false.
that is crazy.
But that's in there. But Yeah, false narratives are in books about Orisha all the time.
What about this one? I heard this one probably ain't really that good either. I know
Um,
I got that a long time ago.
man, that book. Well, first I will say that book does not represent West African Orisha tradition.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
it is definitely a book that would fall under more of the Afro-Cuban side.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But even amongst Afro-Cubans, there's some stuff in that book that they wouldn't
It
agree
ain't.
with either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't recommend that book to anybody.
You know what? It feels like, when it comes to understanding uh these traditions, it's not really the it's not really the Isheshe books that you can understand these traditions from. It's like books that are a lot of academic books on Yoruba culture, right? Seems like to be
There are a
more
few. There
beneficial.
are a few Ishe books that are
Okay.
pretty good. I will say more of them are not as great than others.
Hmm.
But it's always good to get academic books as well because you're going to learn about the culture itself.
Yeah.
Uh,
It kind of gives you a context of it all, right?
the overlapping culture that is interconnected and interwoven into the spiritual system. So you start to see how both are interdependent upon each other.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people know ritual, but
Right, right,
so,
right.
so if I say, yeah, we're doing a festival, we gotta feed Eshu first, and then
Hmm.
people will be like, well, why do you feed Eshu first? And they're like, well, we just do.
Hmm. Yeah.
But they don't know the stories behind why we feed Eshu first, and we don't, and then they don't know the cultural practical element to why we feed Eshu first, and why he's outside, and why we do these things. So it's always good to get both sides of the story
Hmm.
because then you'll start to really see through your ancestral lens of the Yoruba
Hmm.
people and know why things are the way they are, and not just doing them to go through the motions. You
Yeah.
know, you start to understand what this song means, what
Hmm.
it's saying, why it's sung at this point, why
Hmm.
is it sung on this day, and so on and so forth. So you get the whole scope of what's going on here.
Indeed, indeed. Also, I have been thinking, um, I was doing some studying. It was on a totally unrelated topic, but kind of relates in a sense where what does it mean for a group of people to be in history, right? And this idea that Europeans, uh, uh, you know, within the academy at one time and through their own Western and European philosophical lens that we weren't history makers because we didn't write anything down, right? Um, Obviously, we know that's bull. But at the same time, I was just thinking, like, I saw somebody ask Chat GPT the other day what today's mathematics was, and it gave that right answer. And I was like, yo, that's not supposed to, that's not, but what I'm saying that to say this, like, there are things, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are things that we gatekeep and we're able to gatekeep better by keeping our traditions oral. Even if we write a book about it, everything that you need to know is not going to be in that book.
Yeah, 100%. And not only that, being in history means existing in time.
Mm,
So if I use a specific type of plate and that plate breaks, and long after I go, the remnants are found in some archaeological dig, they know that these are the type of plates and materials that they used in this region, and that's a part of history now.
yeah,
We
yeah.
tend to only think of history as stuff we can see or read, but
Hmm.
pottery and paleontology and archaeology are just as important as written language because they
Absolutely.
tell stories as well.
Absolutely.
So, existing in time, even though somebody may not have a script, they are still existing and making those ripples in time because civilizations just don't vanish.
Right.
They
Right.
somewhere. Whether
Yeah.
we find them today or whether we find them 10 years from now. You
Right.
can find the pottery, you're going to find the stone tools, you're going to find the iron implements, you're going to find the beads, you're going to find the clothing, you're going to find the skeletons, you're going to find the ruins of the empires, you're going to find all this stuff. And it's going to tell you a story, whether it's written in a book or written down on a stone tablet or not.
Mm,
All going to tell you a story. And
mm.
it's very interesting because gatekeeping is the new buzzword.
Yeah.
Oh, you shouldn't gatekeep. Oh,
Mm.
you should do this. Well, African traditions by nature have some sort of gatekeeping,
Yeah.
and we're not alone in that. Uh,
Right.
you think Fortune 500 companies don't?
Exactly. Absolutely.
And you find everything about Apple's processing system online.
Hell no.
They're going to gatekeep some stuff
Right.
because things that are sacred, important, and things we hold close to our chests cannot be let out for everyone to know. So
Mm.
there's things in the many different priesthoods in our tradition that yeah, we're going to gatekeep because what do you need to know for?
Right.
You haven't
Yeah. Why do you need to know? That's a great
you
question.
don't even do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would just be about you knowing for what your own ego or what is it? Because we use these types of information to help people, to
Hmm.
revive communities, to help with childbirth, to
Hmm.
cure people from illnesses, to fix calamities in people's lives, to remove blockages, to elevate people to different modes of thinking. We use these things for all these types of things in our tradition. So yes, they're very sacred to us. No, we're not going to share them with everybody. It doesn't make sense for us to. There's secrets that doctors have in the ER that you won't know unless you're a doctor.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
just what it is. So African traditions by nature have a level of gatekeeping. Now, where gatekeeping becomes counterproductive is when basic things that you should know as a practitioner are not shared or not taught or not said. That's when it becomes obsessive. You
Yeah.
know, if you receive a shrine in this tradition, you should know how to take care of said shrine. You should be taught how to
Can
take
you,
care
can
of
you
said.
tell us what it means to receive a shrine in this tradition?
You take one home and put it in your house.
You have to earn it.
It should be. You should start off learning knowledge about said shrine, about this Orisha. You should know what foods it takes. You should know how to communicate with said shrine. You should know what days you communicate with said shrine. You should know where to put said shrine in your house and where to avoid putting it.
Mm,
You should know how to wash said shrine, how to make the spiritual components, the concoction, which we call omero, but it's like a spiritual bath. You should know how to make that to wash this shrine. You
mhm.
should know your annual requirements to this shrine. You should know the songs to sing to this shrine. You should know the praise poetry to invoke the deity in the shrine. You should know all of these things before you take the shrine home. Otherwise, it becomes a big paperweight in your house, and you're not doing nothing with it
Yeah. Yeah.
in your house.
I think I'm gonna get I don't wanna I'm not gonna I think it makes more sense to ask this question here because we just got through talking about gatekeeping and how there's a process, right? Like um this idea, and I see it online sometimes, and this rise of self-initiation. And
You mean lazy people?
yeah, because
Uh,
like we just spoke
that's
about.
what we're talking about.
Yeah,
I don't know if they know that.
yeah.
We're
And
talking about lazy people.
because and you mention it, you ask them, "Hey, are you initiated?" And they'll say no, right? And it's like, so you're getting your information from some books and YouTube, right? And so just as we kind of showed earlier, like I didn't know back then, like I haven't read this in over a decade, right? But I didn't know enough back then to recognize that this was more Cuban based, right? Um, I didn't know enough when I read this then to recognize that a lot of stuff in here isn't right and exact. And so if you're self-initiating, like you
How would
don't
you know?
have a checks and balances, nobody to really
There's
show.
no discernment because everything sounds good.
Mm,
Uh, and we're used to our books in Western civilization to have a certain amount of truth.
hmm
We're
hmm
used to our books, being more vetted, and we're used to trusting our books more.
hmm
We have to understand that, just because it's in a book doesn't make it true, no matter what the epistemology you read about.
hmm
So it's very dangerous
mm,
for people to be engaging with things they don't understand, they haven't studied, and they haven't taken the time to really dig into to know what they're doing.
hmm
Uh, you know, you can bring a great bit of misfortune on yourself
mm,
by
mm,
trying to work with things like Orisha or Egungun or Egbe or Emere or all of these things that exist in our tradition, and you don't know what they are.
mm,
Haven't had a proper teacher, a Babalawo or Iyanifa or a Babalorisha or an Awo or an Oje or these titles that we have for people that are specialists who have taken the time over years and years and years and years and years. They've traveled to Nigeria or they live in Nigeria or they've been through the process and they know how to get you to where you need to go.
hmm
And for a multitude of reasons, people don't go this route. Number one is people don't want to pay.
Yeah.
They don't want to spend no money.
Yeah.
They feel like everything should be free.
Yeah, it don't work like that.
My mother taught me a long time ago, baby, ain't nothing free in life.
hmm
Nothing.
hmm
Whether you paying monetarily or you paying some other type of way, ain't nothing free
Right.
in life.
Right.
So that's the one thing. And I would say to these people, if it's important to you, you will save the money to achieve whatever initiation, shrine, whatever you're trying to get. You'll save the money and take classes and training until you can able to afford what you're trying to do. If it's important to you,
hmm
talking to a guy that paid
Yeah.
free,
hmm
you
Right.
I paid. So if it's important, you'll find a way to save that money. And there's no timetable on your destiny. So save
Yeah.
$100 a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's number one thing. Number two things is people that have this sense of entitlement. They think they're so powerful and they think that they're so mystical and this and I hear this and I do that.
I see that. Yeah, I
And
see that a lot too.
and this is the thing, man. There are people with gifts, right? But there's an Odu that talks about fortune tellers versus Babalawo. And there was a king that called these fortune tellers to his palace. And he called the Babalawo to the palace. And they put three birds under a basket. And they asked the fortune tellers, how many birds is under this basket? Fortune tellers said, there's three birds under that basket. They asked the Babalawos the same question separately. The Babalawo said, there are three birds under that basket, but one should be used for sacrifice. Because if you do not use one of these birds for sacrifice, in 3 days' time, your son will die.
Mm.
The fortune tellers laughed. Oh, he's just making stuff up to make themselves sound better, make them sound more smart. So, of course, the sacrifice wasn't done. Well, in 3 days' time, the king's son died.
Mm.
So the moral of this story was Babalawo are not fortune tellers, but what we do can sometimes see past
Mm-hmm.
those that can just see fortunes or possible outcomes
Yeah.
because we don't know anything,
Mm-hmm.
but we know how to access the information of different oracles
Mm-hmm.
that have the answer to these questions. Because when you sit on the mat for a divination, and a certain Odu falls for you. And we tell the story of that Odu. You the person in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Because the stories happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And we are bringing up the past. We are digging up the past. We are reflecting upon this occurrence and what we did and how we solved the problem or how we made blessings manifest or how we got rid of misfortune. We know from this occurrence, someone took the time to, hey, remember when this happened? Let's write this down. And when they wrote this down, we learned lessons from this. And
Mm.
this is how we solve problems.
Yes.
So to be self-initiated, you don't have access to that.
Mm. Mm.
Because
Right.
one is initiated and one is installed with the Orisha. They are installed with the tools to access their Orisha. They are
Mm-hmm.
trained how to decipher the messages. You don't have access to that.
Mm.
There's no book that can teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
No book that can install this to you.
Right.
Even if you get a book of Odu and you read Odu, and you don't have the connection with the deity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't even know how to break down this Odu to even know what it's saying.
Right.
Most you are not literal.
Right.
Not going to tell you get 5 golds. Some Odu are not like that.
Right.
They may be very subtle, and the trained person goes, "Oh, okay, I see. Oh, okay, this represents that." But if you're not trained, you're
Mm-hmm.
not initiated, you have no idea what you're looking at.
Right.
Just like a doctor
Mm-hmm.
or someone who wants to be a doctor that burst in the ER with some tools that they got from Home Depot.
Come
I
through,
can fix that
come
broken.
through with a screwdriver and a hammer. I'm ready.
No, they gonna tell you get out of here, and then they get offended when they say, "Man, I don't know why them stuck up babalawos, bro." And they talk about, did you see him come in here with some power tools? Did you see that?
Right.
That's how we look at y'all.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I just learned recently, probably this year from, or maybe last year from talking to you. But I didn't realize that Ifa wasn't the only oracle within the tradition.
No, so there are many different divination systems. There are many different ways to access oracles. So some people will say that no matter the oracle, it is all connected to Ifa, which I understand that argument.
Mhm.
But there are many different channels. So Obatala, his worship system, well, I should say his divination system is Erindilogun, which are cowrie shells, 16
Mm.
cowrie shells.
Mhm.
These are different than an Ifa diviner would use, whether he uses Opele chain or Ikin. So there are different ways to access information. The cowrie shells have a one Odu based system. So you'll throw the cowrie shells and you'll get an Odu. Ifa, you will get two put together. So you'll get like Irosun Meiji, or you get Irosun Otoropon, or something like that. So different ways to access information. And Orisha, outside of Orumila, usually have cowrie shell divination attached to them. So Oshun has a cowrie shell system. Shango has a cowrie shell system. And then you have Orisha that don't have either one.
Mm.
They just use colon.
So wait, whenever you're doing the divination, you're getting an Odu.
Mhm.
And so that
If
is
you're doing cowrie shell or E5 divination, yes, you're getting an Odu. But when you do things like colon divination, there is not an Odu, but there are messages
okay.
and are signs that mean things. There's either mirror divination in parts of Nigeria where they use it a different way. There's water divination in different parts of Nigeria, which they get
Very
other
interesting. Really, water
types.
divination. Wow, that's very interesting.
Yes, there are many types of divinations in our
I would like to
traditions.
see that done. That's fascinating.
It's different ways of accessing information depending on the deity in Orisha that you're talking to. Some divination deal directly with the Orisha, some access an oracle, some it's different types of ways.
So,
So
okay, so not to get off track, but I think it would be good for the people. All right, so let's say you have just a regular well, I don't want to say regular, but an E5 divination. Um and so because many people may think that they are in this divination, they're consulting with an Orisha, right? Like many people would probably like think that, but obviously you're consulting with the oracle. In what instance
the
would
Orisha is present.
okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
As always with Ifa.
Oh yeah, Rumala. But
So
what about like if someone was like Omo Shango or something, like
doesn't
what
matter. You can't do Ifa.
yeah, right. Right.
So if you come to Ifa,
Mhm.
Ifa will speak.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. I got you.
So,
And so, but what about Eshu? Like, what do you like? Because I read a story about Eshu, and and I guess it was like it was it's probably I don't know if it's even right and exact, but it was something that an anthropologist put together about different African stories, and it was talking about just one of the stories about Eshu and um, him having to have a gift whenever someone comes or leaves the crossroads. But don't you have to, in order to consult with an Orisha, what don't like do you have to go through Eshu first?
no.
Okay,
Uh, when you want to go to Eshu, you go to Eshu.
okay.
Eshu has his own shrine, its own things that he likes, his own way of worshiping. Uh, Eshu does show up different places in our tradition, but he is not. It's not mandated that you go to Eshu before you go to another
Mhm.
in divination type practices. Eshu has his own divination.
Yeah, okay,
So
yeah.
the thing about Eshu is that he is present during Ifa divination because when you do what's called Eboriru, which is the sacrifice we do from an Ifa divination, that is going to Eshu.
Okay, okay.
So when you look at the trays, that people imprint Odu on. When you see the face at the top of the tray, that face is Eshu.
Hmm.
He is watching, he is looking, he is there. He is present for that divination. So you start to see in regards to Ifa divination, it's not just you, the diviner, and the oracle in the room.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
you, the diviner, it's the oracle, it's a Rumula, it's Shu, and who knows what deity may come about in the Odu as well. So it's a lot of different moving parts to
What
this.
what about your ancestors?
So one's ancestors, which we call alale, ancestors can be perpetuated too through a variety of means. Sometimes we perpetuate them in the earth where
Hmm.
they're said to dwell. There are types of ancestor shrines. One can perpetuate their ancestors through that. But I want to make clear, ancestors. Uh, these are your your distant relatives from a time where you were not alive.
Right, right.
I will say that again. These are distant relatives from a time where were not alive.
Hmm.
So your mother, your father, your uncle, your aunt, these are not your ancestors.
Hmm.
They're your mother,
Yeah,
father,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
uncle,
yeah,
your aunt.
yeah.
They go to the ancestors.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
for you, they wouldn't be your ancestors.
Indeed, that's
I
a
think
great
that
point.
gets lost on
It
people
does. It really does. Yeah.
because when you talk about your great great grandfather,
Hmm.
that's your ancestor.
Right, right.
You never met him. You
Hmm.
might not even seen a picture of him.
Right, right, right,
That's your ancestor.
right, right, right.
Now your children, and the further you go, then your mother, if I become their ancestors.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Understand? So
Hmm.
we all worship them the same as a collective, but that gets lost on people sometimes because they'll say, "Well, my mother is my ancestor." Now I'm like, "No, she's your mother.
Right, right.
She went to the ancestors.
Yeah,
You,
yeah,
that's your mom."
yeah, yeah.
So when you pray, you wouldn't say Alale, you would say Iyami.
Mm.
It's your mother. Yeah, yeah, me,
Hmm.
your mother. you know.
Hmm.
That's that. I wanted to make that clear. Your ancestors can perpetuate on your behalf. Your ancestors can work with Orisha to benefit you.
Mm.
That's one of the things you can hold on to your ancestor. If they come out a certain way in divination, you can hold on to your ancestor, which would mean you need to worship them for a better outcome or to manifest blessings. So ancestors are very important. Um, they are a very integral part of our society. They're an integral part of the culture at large. But I think sometimes people don't really understand their role and they get them confused with others' roles in the tradition.
I agree because even as someone who is, you know, uh, just learning and I see a lot of self-initiates, they will definitely confuse what the role of our ancestors are in these traditions. Getting back to Eshu just for a little bit, um, what does he represent in Yoruba tradition, and how did Western interpretations come to wrongly associate him with the devil? And what does that misunderstanding reveal about colonial distortions of African spirituality?
Okay, so let's start with the devil claim. There was a man named Samuel Ajay Crowder. He was an Anglican bishop. He was probably the first West African Anglican bishop uh, in existence.
Mm.
Um, when he got his training, he wanted to translate the Bible into Yoruba because the Yoruba had no translation of the Bible at this time.
Hmm.
So, in translating the Bible, he decided to translate Eshu as devil.
Oh, wow.
So, this is why we have a day to this day in Nigeria. Eshu is not Satan Day.
Wow.
Because
So
that
there's an issue.
translation.
It's not Satan Day in Nigeria.
Yeah, I got a shirt. I should have worn a shirt. Um,
Wow.
we got shirts. We got a whole day
Mhm.
because that has permeated through the Yoruba
Mhm.
people that are Christian. That Eshu is Satan. Eshu is
Right.
devil. Eshu is
Mhm.
evil,
Yes.
and it's all because of that translation. And you can tell it was nefarious in its in what he was trying to do because there's
That ain't
nobody
no translation.
well, there's
Like,
nobody else that's translated.
yeah, yeah,
Jesus is not Orumila.
right,
Moses didn't become Obatala.
right.
You gonna translate,
You translate
like Moses didn't
exactly.
become Orisha, like none of that happened. It was just Eshu. It
Right,
was singled out.
right, right.
So that is the reason why he is associated with evil.
I
You
need
know,
a link to the issue is not Satan shirt, by the way. But go ahead.
still, I'll have to find
Okay.
I have to find who makes them.
Um,
Um,
do you do you think that it's easy for some people to continue to run with this idea of Eshu being associated with the devil because Eshu is known as a trickster?
uh,
And then the Robert
that
Johnson,
might contribute to it, but
and then the Robert Johnson stuff, right?
here's the thing about when you're dealing with Christianity, you have to
Mhm.
understand. Number one, we're heathens to them.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
We don't worship their gods, so we're people that are not worthy of respect spiritually in their eyes.
Hmm.
Uh, it's easier for them to make Eshu evil to condemn our practice.
Mm.
And you have people that will try to misconstrue Oduduwa or praise poetry or Riki or something to try to make Eshu this evil thing. Therefore, your whole practice is evil because Eshu is so important
Hmm.
to our practice.
Yeah.
But to truly understand Eshu, you must understand that Eshu is what I call non-conforming.
Mm.
Eshu is not a good deity.
Hmm.
Eshu is not a bad deity.
Hmm.
Eshu is not benevolent nor malevolent. Eshu is not a lot of things, and he
Issue is
is a
issue.
lot of things
Yeah.
at the same time. And
Yeah.
people that are listening are like, "What is he talking about? He's being a double talker." But what I'm trying to say is, Eshu's role is that of like a guardian, like
Mm.
a policeman, like a collector on behalf of our supreme deity. He
Mm.
he has authority
That's what I was
to
about to ask you. Does he have authority over any Orisha?
he has authority over time and space.
Mm.
They say Eshu can throw a rock today and hit you last week.
Mm. Damn. Damn.
So he doesn't conform to our rules and regulations. He's out there doing the work of Olodumare, who is our supreme deity. So if there's sacrifices to collect, he picks up the sacrifices, takes it to the appropriate place. If it's offerings, he takes it and makes sure it goes to the right place. If there's an Orisha that should be appeased, he may show up to remind said worshiper, you need to do what you said you was going to do.
Mhm.
Uh, the trickster thing comes into play is when you doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because
that
of
is
this.
where issue can be a trickster.
Yeah.
So there's a story of these two farmers.
Mhm.
These two farmers had this big farm. And they were going to set it up and be financially stable as long as they stayed within that farm. And they before they started the farm, they went for Ifa divination, and the Babalawo told them this is going to be really successful as long as keep Eshu fed and worshipped. The farm will be great. Well, all they heard was successful. So one day Eshu comes to pay them a visit. So he's coming down the middle of this farm. He's got on a hat. One hat is on this side is red, this side is black. And one of the guys, the farmer said, "Hey, it's this guy coming down here with this black hat on." And the other farmer said, "I don't see a guy with a black hat, but it's this guy with this red hat on." And he's like, "No, no, he got on a black hat. You can't even see, man. He got on a red hat." They start to argue. They start to fight. They fall out. Don't want to speak to each other no more. The farm dies. They lose all their money. They reduce to ruins. All because they didn't keep Eshu fed like the divination told them to do. So, yes, trick them
Yeah.
because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. It's not like he just show up and just, "Oh, I'm gonna trick you today." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's something you didn't do. It's something that you knew you were supposed to do.
Right, right.
But not as you ain't did it. Hi, I'm here.
I think one of the things that I guess it seeped into this whole is American mythology and how we view um, concepts in African spirituality. Like I really feel like that, like the Robert Johnson story when he was to the crossroads and the devil tuned his guitar, and they made movies about it and it became this folklore, and I feel like that stuff like that helped to contribute, because that would be crazy. Like if I mean I'd probably be more powerful and of a story. I mean, don't be wrong. We we have a lot of us have a respect and appreciation, obviously, for Robert Johnson, the man himself, and what he was able to do musically, and the idea of Crossroads because we know where it comes from. But the idea that it's devil at the crossroad, like, because I remember one time I was building with you, it's like it's not even a concept of devil in this tradition.
We don't have that concept of this purely evil entity that fell from heaven and is going against God, and we don't have that
Mhm.
concept. There are actually a lot of deities in our tradition that will be at the crossroads. Eshu is one of them. Uh, Egbe is another.
Mhm.
Uh, there are different types that may show up at a crossroad to collect sacrifice or to be present.
Mhm.
Um, through folklore, I believe uh, deities like Eshu and his many different similar manifestations in other traditions
Mhm.
have come to be known in America at the crossroads because Eshu is not the only deity like himself even in Africa. We have Legba amongst the Voodoo tradition.
Mhm.
You have Anansi,
Mhm.
Yokom,
Calm.
which is also known as a storyteller and a trickster.
Yep.
There's Equeshu amongst the Igbo people,
Mhm.
which is another deity that's like Eshu
We
amongst.
even wasn't like we even had like some of that folklore come to America and survive. Like
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like all these African groups come to America.
yeah.
Even our Haitian brothers and sisters, they have
Hmm.
Palapa.
Hmm.
So I think what we're dealing with is a lot of similar stories, and then these people tell stories to their
Yeah.
children, and through
Yeah.
the you
Hmm.
it becomes known as this deity at the crossroads.
Hmm.
And Christianity is the same today as it was back then, as
Yeah.
far regards to, treatment of spirits of other deities. So of course they're gonna call it a devil or
Hmm.
whatever it is, but in a lot of blues records
Hmm.
references, this thing and they call it a devil.
Yeah.
uh, for a long time, nobody knew the code
Yeah.
of what
Yeah.
they were saying.
Absolutely. Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
Until people, start really researching African spiritual traditions. And you're like, wait, crossroads, hold on.
That wasn't just talk because my grandmother used to tell me stories of my grandfather, my great grandfather, her father, doing things at the crossroads.
Yeah. Crossroads, woods,
Hmm.
things of that nature. I mean, what's the guy's name? They depicted him in Cadillac Records. Howlin' Wolf.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He came back from the woods howling with this
yeah,
guitar in his hand, so there's
yeah.
all types of stories like that. And I must say, even though in Odu Ifa, there are stories of people going into like woods and things and coming out with blessings and instruments and
Mm.
tools, and so this is not.
Is there like a significance of like woods or forests within the
Say
tradition?
something. The
Mhm.
forest, a
It ain't
lot of
just
things
wildlife,
happen
huh?
in forest, man. A
Yeah.
lot of things happen in African tradition forest, man. There's a lot of different type of entities running around in the forest. You got deities that call themselves the kings of the forest. You got other deities that take exception with that. So, if you're a worshiper of this deity and you come into the forest and, they might try to, trick you and do something else. It's a lot of things. Hunters that went into the forest. That's why if you ever see a hunter in the Shay tradition, they have a lot of medicine, a lot of charms,
Hmm.
coat of charms.
All
Those
right.
charms do something different because they go into the forest. Like, I need to be fortified. I
Right.
heard about this one particular forest. This one particular forest. It snipes these hunters, and
Right. Right.
uh, I'm not going for that today. So it's the forest is a magical, mystical place in African tradition. So it makes sense that once we got to America, it became the same for
Mhm.
us.
Yeah, man, that's another rabbit hole I'm about to go down. So I'll probably be calling you, in the next few days, so we can finish that. But one thing that you mentioned Papa Legba of Haitian voodoo, and we have Legba and the Fon people, and so is that the only Orisha that you can find in voodoo, or are there others?
Oh no, voodoo of the Homian brothers and sisters, current Benin, they share a few deities with us.
Okay.
They also have
And
and
would they be lower in that tradition, or are they still like looked at?
they're Egungun. They call them Egungun.
Okay, okay, okay.
So we both shared that. I'm trying to think of the name. They also have a deity. They have Ogum.
Mm,
That's what it is. Yeah,
hmm.
which is
Wow.
he's just like Ogum.
Yeah.
Uh, Even amongst the Haitian voodoo, they have Ogun Frere and several other types of Ogun. So um, our voodoo brothers and sisters, we do share a few
Hmm.
deities, in which they call their deities Loa. Actually, in Dahomey, they call those voodoo.
Mm.
So that's actually the name of their deities, so
Oh,
voodoo.
really?
Yeah. So when you get to Haitian voodoo, they call them Loa.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Okay. Okay.
we do share a few deities with our voodoo brothers and sisters, um, but it's not an abundant amount. But
Okay.
we do share deities with them. And then we got to think about there's different types of voodoo. So you got voodoo in Benin, which is the Homian voodoo, and then you have Ewe voodoo, which is in Ghana.
Mm.
You
Hmm.
probably like how they get there. Well, a bunch of migrants from Dahomey
Yeah.
migrated to Ghana.
Hmm.
So they established voodoo up there. So Ewe voodoo is a little different from Dahomean voodoo.
Hmm.
So my brother Sina, put me on to that because his father has a temple in Ghana,
Wow.
which they do voodoo there. So I have conversations and we compare things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That. But yeah, we do share some deities. We even share some types of divination practices. They have a type of Opele chain that we have, but they use two, in which we use one. So that's one of the differences. But they practice.
So is there divination within voodoo as well?
Yes, they
Oh.
have in Dahomey they have Fa.
Hmm.
In Ewe Voodoo they have Afa.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
these are derivatives of Ifa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even amongst the Ewe Voodoo, I know they say when they ask a question, the spirit retrieves it from Yoruba land.
Wow.
So they acknowledge that
Wow. That's dope.
our
Yeah.
connection.
No, that's dope. Yeah, that's great.
So that's a commonality that we have. Um, and yeah, there are many things that are different, but we do have commonalities between our voodoo brothers and sisters.
What's like the significance of like songs that are dedicated to Orisha?
So songs are usually used in a couple of different ways. We use them at the end of our worship sessions when things manifest and things are completed. We can use them there. We also use them sometimes to invoke deities.
Mm-hmm.
We use them for that. Of course, they're at festivals. There are
Yeah.
a multitude of different types of songs. Weddings.
Mm.
Weddings. You'll hear songs from Orisha if a particular deity is linked to the couple or something like that. Um, you know, there are songs in the middle of rituals for the manifestation of prayers. There's songs, when placing ebo or sacrifice. There's songs then. There's songs for almost everything.
Yeah.
Tradition.
We black folks, man. That's what we do.
Yeah, a song when you wake up. Yes, a song when you go to sleep. There's a lot of different types of songs, but Orisha songs we use them in a
Mhm.
multitude of ways. But they are usually filled with lyrics with attributes about the deity.
Mhm.
Uh, you can learn a lot just learning
Mhm.
the lyrics of songs.
Mhm. Like even, like what about the ones that even the diasporic traditions sing? Because like you have people whose native language might be Spanish or French, but they sing these songs in Yoruba.
So I usually see this in Lukumi or Regla de Ocha.
Hmm.
The songs will be in Yoruba,
Hmm.
but people have to understand that Yoruba in these places like Cuba, it's not a language that is spoken on the daily basis.
Yeah. Hmm.
So it becomes a ritual language.
Got
Most
you.
not unlike other places in the diaspora.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when it becomes a ritual language, sometimes the people that are singing the songs don't really know everything
Okay.
about the song.
Okay. Okay.
They know they're supposed to sing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they know when they're supposed to sing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The meaning and the lyrics you might not always get the answers that you want
Mhm.
because it's not a everyday language there. I've seen songs that are sung amongst Afro-Cuban circles uh, that it wasn't really explained, but when I sung it around a Yoruba man, you know,
Mhm.
he knew he knew what I was trying to say, and he
Mhm.
told me, "Oh, this is a song about this," and I
Mhm.
was, like, "Oh, okay." So
Yeah.
sometimes that's just because of the way that Yoruba or the way that Orisha made it to these other places
Mhm.
under extreme duress, under slavery and colonization.
Mhm.
A lot of things didn't make the trip, so to
Yeah.
speak. And some of these places in the diaspora tend to have more ritualistic things added to make up for those things that
Ah,
didn't
right.
make the trip.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's just the nature of what happened and
Yeah. Hmm.
slavery did to us, unfortunately. So that's just what it is.
Yeah. Indeed. Last thing I wanted to ask you. You mentioned Egungun, and for some reason I don't know why, but at one point I thought the Egungun were the ancestors, right? So is Egungun and Orisha a representation of the ancestors or something more complex? And why would I be thinking that Egungun were the ancestors? Where did I get that from?
A lot of people say that.
Okay, okay.
A lot of people say. A lot of people will make that. Being I've studied this extensively from a lot of different regions of Nigeria. Talked to Egungun priest, things of that nature. Egungun can be different things at different times.
Mm,
So first, I want to say we have our own names for
mhm,
ancestors. Alale, we have Awan Baba Inla. We have these type of words that mean ancestors. Egungun, as a meaning, means masquerade.
mm,
So Egungun is a masquerade. It's an ancestral masquerade, but the Egungun itself is a deity.
mm,
I wouldn't say it's an Orisha. Most people will tell you they are not Orisha.
mm,
Egungun is Egungun.
mm,
And all Egungun have names.
mm,
So I want to make that clear. When you see a masquerade, that masquerade is Egungun something.
mm,
Whatever that name is, Egungun Olufe,
mm.
Egungun Janfondora, Egungun Abale, Egungun, all these Egungun have a name. This name is usually depicted upon what type of Egungun it is, what this Egungun represents. Egungun Ode, Egungun of hunters.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, um, it tells about it.
Yeah.
So usually these Egungun are deities that are in a lineage or a group of people in which it is kind of like a guard of this lineage, kind of like a guard of this town, kind of like a guard of this society. So it's a deity unto itself. It has its shrines, it
Mm.
has its songs. We communicate with Egungun. It has its praise poetry. There's all types of things with Egungun. Now, when someone is so important that it represents a collective
Yeah.
king
Mhm.
or someone of royalty, so a ruler, a chief priest, an araba, someone that has royalty to them, they may receive their own egungun.
Mm.
And that Egungun will probably be an amalgamation of all the rulers or all the kings or
Right.
all, and in that, it becomes a collective spirit of all of these past people.
I think that's where some of the confusion for me came in because I heard that explained that way, but with the ancestors, like all the ancestors are, you know what I mean?
Doing the diaspora, we on that concept that I've noticed, we've kind of like taken the minority and made it the majority.
Okay, okay, okay.
Everybody gets to be in Egungun.
Mhm.
People, there are families that don't have Egungun,
Mm.
but they
Mm.
have dead loved ones.
Right.
And I tell people that, and they're like, what? Yeah, and I can show you there's places in northeast Nigeria, amongst the Ijumu, where there are no Egungun in the
Mm.
entire time.
Wow.
They don't have Egungun, but they have ancestor shrines.
Yeah. You know,
So it's just something that hasn't. I don't think we've put the time in to really study it, and people just kind of label it as ancestors and keep going because they're associated with ancestors.
mhm.
On the day that we worship the ancestors, the same exact day that we worship Egungun. So it becomes that even in some of our language, it can be confusing. So if you get in divination that you should hold on to your Egungun Baba,
Mhm.
they're talking about your father.
Mhm.
They're not talking about a masquerade.
Yeah, yeah,
So that can be confusing.
yeah.
Because wait.
Right, 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 right.
So yeah, I understand the more I read, I understood the confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when someone really puts in the time and reads through all of these, these dissertations and talks to Oje or Egungun priest, um, you'll start to get a better understanding,
Mhm.
especially when you start to learn the names of these Egungun and how certain towns have Egungun of their own, and what they're known for, and the pomp and the pageantry of these Egungun are just magnificent.
Yeah.
I've never seen two Egungun that look the same.
Wow.
I've seen them that look similar, but
Yeah.
none like exactly the same. They all
Wow.
have different names. They all do different things. Some Egungun like to be set on fire. Some
Right.
Egungun jumping on trees. Some Egungun, they come out and they do these dances. Some
Mhm.
Egungun talk,
Mm.
and pray for you in this weird voice that they echo. It's crazy, and that's another thing. All Egungun sound the same.
Wow.
It's weird. They all got this real raspy voice,
Mhm.
and if they decide to talk, you will know it's an Egungun. And I'm like,
Yeah.
people on the other side or is it just how they sound to us? I don't know. But every Egungun I've ever heard speak has this particular voice, and practitioners know what I'm talking about. If there's
Right,
anybody
right,
that's
right.
heard Egungun, you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, all Egunguns sound the same. Some come out with swords, some come out with whips, some come out
Mm,
with dogs' heads, some come out with
mm.
goats, some come. You ain't never gonna see name Egungun twice, man. Egungun are very, very versatile in this tradition, and as I mentioned earlier, they're in Benin as well. So you go to
Mhm.
Benin, you'll see some Egungun as well.
I think that's fascinating. Just even just seeing the diversity in and what they can look like or the tradition around it. One last thing, because you kind of touched on this. Here in the diaspora, people often have who are interested in taking this the path of Isheshe and or any other Orisha-based tradition for that matter. They often, they'll get a reading to find out who their Orisha is. Whenever we're dealing with our people, back in Nigeria, is it more or less or like this is like you're born into an Oshun family or your whole town is Oya or is that how that works?
So in Nigeria, it usually flows through the paternal line.
Okay.
Father was a Ogun priest, or that was his deity. So shall be yours. The wife will now have two.
Hmm.
One from her father and one from her husband.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually how it goes in Nigeria. Um, you can also have supporting deities
Hmm.
may come out during divination, but the deity you should most worship for the betterment of your life, or the one that you are a child of, usually comes through your paternal line. Us being separated from our our heritage and our culture. This is why we do Ifa divination and other types of divinations to include cowrie shell divination to find out who speaks for us.
Hmm.
What is our lineage divinity? What deities are in our lineage? This is why we do this because not only does it come through the paternal line in Nigeria, but they also have what's called Esentaye. Esentaye is a ritual done when you are a baby,
Mm.
uh, to where they find out these type of things,
Yeah.
information about the best way to raise you,
Mm.
deities that walk with you,
Right.
what your destiny is,
Hmm.
things to look out for, your taboos in life.
Hmm.
So this is performed after a certain number of days, whether you're a male or a woman. For males, it's 7. For females, it's 9. Um, Names come out of this Esentaye.
Mm.
So they have a multitude of ways of finding these types of things out that don't necessarily require what we do because we usually find Orisha later in life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're backtracking, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Why do self initiates always say it's either Oshun or Shango?
every time I didn't even have to. You could have locked me in a room for 30 days and asked me that when you let me out, and I would have said, "Oh shoot," and Shango. Number one, Shango is the most popular Orisha on the planet.
Hmm.
I didn't say in Yoruba land. I didn't say in America.
Mhm.
I didn't say in Brazil. I didn't say in Colombia. I didn't say in Cuba. I didn't say in Venezuela.
Hmm.
I said in the world. For
Wow.
some reason, that is the guy.
Right, right, right.
Shango is the most popular thing going, man. Everybody, when if you're a man, they go out. Shango.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shango flashy, man. Shango,
Yeah.
the thunder, the lightning, the fire, the multiple wives, the kingship. I mean, it's a lot. I get it. It's a lot.
Hey, you just kind of mentioned something too, though. What a lot of self initiates, what I notice is
Oh,
they act like if they are a man, then their Orisha
that's,
has to be a man.
yeah, that's not true.
Right.
I've met plenty of men that are Yemoja and Oshun and
Mhm.
Okun and Oya and others. So that's not necessarily true at all. And same for women. I've met women that are Ogun and Shango, you
Mhm.
know, and Eshu and Obatala. So we don't have that doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
But Shango he's the most popular thunder deity in our practice for whatever reason. I think because of the traveling of transatlantic slave trade as well, and him going to all these different places and
Mhm.
just
Like you
becoming
mentioned, St. Lucia has a whole
right.
tradition just based on him.
Dad, and it's he's everywhere.
Yeah.
So, which is quite funny because he's not even the only thunder deity in our tradition.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I
Not even
didn't
close. In fact,
know.
Shango may be the youngest thunder deity
Wow.
in our tradition.
Wow.
Shango comes from a lineage. He comes from a lineage in Oyo. So Shango has brothers that were
Wow.
kings before him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shango has an entire lineage of these fire thunder deities. And then there were deities outside of Oyo that existed before him.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so you never hear of Oramfe
Hmm.
as a thunder deity in Ile Ife. Well, he existed way before Shango did,
Right. Right.
historically anyway. So, but he didn't travel
Hmm.
like Shango, and he was never a king either. So maybe that has something to do with it. Oshun is just I don't really know how Oshun. I think because people treat Oshun like Aphrodite.
I don't like that. But yes, you're right. I don't like
Because you
that.
hear about all this
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've yet to see anything about her with love in her tradition yet.
Because things I've read, Oshun has a wrath if you,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I don't mess with Oshun. Oshun, Oshun has battled people. She's battled the Yami. She's learned divination. She's very knowledgeable of medicine. Oshun, that's a bad deity, man. I mean, everybody knows the story. Well, most people know the story about how they tried to leave her out of creating the world, and it wasn't going right without Oshun. So Oshun is not what people think she is.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that want to be sexy or sensual or are in that business just gravitate to Oshun. And don't get me wrong, she is, you
That,
know,
yeah.
there are stories of her being, sensual, and the story with her and
Sweet laughter of Oshun.
Ogun,
Yeah, that.
her getting Ogun to come back to the world. by being with her dance. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I get that, but she's also very wealthy. She's also you know she has association with brass.
Mm-hmm.
See a lot of brass with Oshun.
Really?
It's like her gold. She
Mm-hmm.
washes her brass like she washes her children. So
Wow.
um, I think I think people just see the sexy
Mm-hmm.
Oshun and they're drawn to that. But if you went to Nigeria and seen how them women with Oshun, you might look at Oshun a little different. You know, Oshun
Mm-hmm.
has different colors in different regions. It's not just gold. It's not just the gold is yellow. You'll see white. You'll see green.
Really?
You'll see green and yellow together.
Wow. I
See a
didn't know
lot
that.
of Oshun. Because you got to understand Oshun historically, she went a lot of places.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's how they worship Oshun in Ekiti. There's how they worship Oshun in Ile Ife. There's how they worship Oshun in Oshogbo.
Yeah.
So it's different, and that's what a lot of Orisha. A lot of Orisha are worshipped different in different places because they went different places. Like
Yeah.
Ogun Shaki is not worshipped the same as Ogun in Ire, which is not worshipped the same as Ogun in Oyo, which is not worshipped the same as Ogun in Oshogbo. So it's a lot of variety in this tradition, and I want to say that's important because if you get initiated in one corner of Nigeria and your friend gets initiated in another, and y'all get initiated to the same deity, and y'all, see each other's shrines and y'all see different stuff, neither one of y'all are wrong.
Right. Right. So don't start going off
They
on each
do it
other.
there versus how they do it here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's very important to note. But yeah, the versatility, the diversity, the many different things you'll see in this tradition amongst what we call onisheshe or practice of isheshe,
Mhm.
um, of Esin Orisha Ibile. Um, it's just a multitude of things amongst a multitude of people in different regions of southwestern Nigeria.
Indeed.
At
Indeed.
those border Yoruba people who border Benin, which border Togo, and you'll
Mhm.
start to see, different things in that area. So
Right.
very diverse.
Um, for anybody who has out there who has listened and watched, um, and might be inspired to learn more about the tradition because this happens often with it's actually happened with some of your interviews as well. And so um, and keep in mind that it's listeners from everywhere. So what would you, I guess, what advice would you give them if they were wanting to, learn more about the tradition and possibly make that their way of life?
I'm gonna give you advice I wish somebody gave me. Number one, if you're sure you want to get into this tradition, take language courses.
Mm,
This will save you a lot of time because you'll know what stuff means and you won't have to, go through that struggle. So I would take language courses for like a year or two
mhm,
before you even get like divinations or look to receive anything or look to initiate. Just take the language courses. And when you take the language courses, then you'll start to understand the culture at large
mhm.
before you get into the spiritual component, which will strengthen your knowledge of the spiritual component because now you know how they both intersect.
Mhm.
Then after that, you can get your divinations, you can, see what your Orisha is and your path or I want to say that this just came to me. Not everybody has an Orisha.
Mm. Wow.
Some
So
people,
you might go through a divination and ask who you're a child of, and it could be nobody.
oh no, it'll say something, but it
Okay.
might not be an Orisha. It might be an Egungun.
Oh.
It might be Egbe. It might be Ori.
Wow.
Doesn't have to be an Orisha.
Wow.
It's just usually an Orisha.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes people have different stuff going on.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would take language courses and then get into the spiritual component. I definitely can help with a teacher of language coaches, my boy Ade. You might know him as Ori Ire on Instagram. He has a great teacher I can link you with. Also, Maulua teaches language courses. So, if you're interested, I am Blak Pantha Masi on IG, BlakPanthaMossi. So, hit me up on Instagram and I'll get you to the right people.
No doubt, no doubt. Black Panther, man, it's always a pleasure building with you, my brother. I'm gonna be calling you soon because, like, again, every time we build, I be having more questions, right? So, but I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the time. Another just great conversation, and just thank you, man. Thank you for shining a light on these traditions and our ancestors, and helping the world know more about who we are and where we come from.
No issue, no problem. It is my duty incumbent upon me by my Egungun.
Mm, mm.
So there's that.
Yeah. Indeed, indeed. Well, you have a great night, my brother.
All right, bro. What I will.
Peace.